Since the launch of Monster Hunter World, I have been making build videos to help hunters take on the challenging hunts in the game. But now the best of the best builds are all done, things don't feel as challenging anymore. So with that, I present to you the Budget Build Challenge. For this video, we'll be looking at a budget build for the Light Bowgun. Now what is the Budget Build Challenge? Well, it's basically where we take a endgame budget vanilla build and test it against some of the hardest hunts in the game and see how it performs. Of course, there are some self-imposed rules for this budget build challenge. So firstly, the builds can only use weapons and armor below the rank of Ruiner Nergigante and only from the base version of Monster Hunter World Iceborne. So whilst Gold Rathian and Brute Tigrex armor is okay, weapons and armor from the likes of Rajang, Stygian Zinogre, Elatrion Fatalis are not allowed. The next rule is that the build can contain no tier 4 decorations, so no decorations that have 2 skills on them. The decorations have to be easily farmable from high rank. And then lastly, the challenge will feature 3 hunts, one against Tempered Ruiner Nergigante, one against one of the normal monsters added to the game, so Rajang, Frostfang Barrier, Stygian Zinogre, so on and so forth, and then finally the last test will either be against Fatalis or Elatrion depending on the build that is used. So let's get into this. When it comes to the Light Bowgun, it is a very efficient weapon. It may not be the flashiest out there, but it's able to take on pretty much any monster in the game quite effectively. Also, because you can stay at range, it means that it adds to your survivability while still being able to damage monsters. Now when it comes to the budget build though, you're kind of limited. This is because you have to really restrict yourself to maybe 1 or 2 types of ammunition. If you spread yourself too thin and try to cover every single piece of ammo available to the weapon, your build is going to suffer. So with that in mind, I focused on sticky ammunition as our main ammunition type, as this is an effective fixed damage ammo type that can be used against any monster, and we will also be utilizing poison ammunition as well. This is because the budget build we are using is probably the most budget build that is going to be featured in this series. So let's get into this and see how it does. Now first of all, for the build, when it comes to the armor, you'll want to go for the Rathian Helm Alpha, the Nargacuga Mail Beta, the Rathian Vambraces Beta, the Nargacuga Fouds Alpha, and the Nargacuga Greaves Alpha. I'm also using an Awakening Charm 3, and for my weapon, I'm using the Blackwing Bowgun. This has an attack increase augmentation and then slot upgrade augmentation attached to it. As for your specialist tools, these are down to personal preference, but I've gone for Rocksteady Mantle and Temporal Mantles, as we will be trying this build against Fatalis. Now when it comes to the decorations, you've only got a few to play around with, but you'll have to go for artillery jewels to max out the artillery skill. I've then gone for flawless jewels, which kind of are optional, but because of the way this build works, it's still useful. This will max out peak performance for us. I've then gone for a fortitude jewel to give us a point in the fortify skill, another optional jewel to be honest, and then I've gone for vitality jewels to max out health boost and venom jewels to max out poison attack. As for the jewels and the mantles, these are down to personal preference, but like I said, we're going against Fatalis, so I've gone for heavy artillery jewels to max out the heavy artillery skill when we're wearing them. So if you've done what I've done here, you have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which will be 200 health and 150 stamina when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You'll have a raw attack of 394, which can be higher when you take into account peak performance. You have 25% base affinity, but this is not important because we are using sticky ammo and the sticky ammo explosions cannot crit, and this will be our main source of damage. You have average deviation, and then when it comes to the custom mods, you want 2 evade reloading custom mods and then 2 recoil suppressors. As for the special ammo, you have the Weapon Blast, and you'll have a little bit of a slightly low defense with 983. That is strong against water, okay against ice, but unfortunately weak to the other elements. Now, when it comes to the skills, first of all, you'll have Evade Window at level 5. Evade Window increases the invincibility frames when we perform rolls and dodges and such. This is our main defensive skill with this build, as we have a low defense. We're able to pretty much dodge through any attack, keeping ourselves alive. This also works in unison with the evade reloading as well, as we will be dodging a lot to reload our weapon. You'll also have poison attacks at level 4, increasing how effective our poison ammunition is with this build. This is also tied into the armor we're wearing, to be honest, and we'll talk about this more in a moment. You have health boost at level 3, allowing our health to get to that maximum of 200. You have ammo up at level 3, increasing the amount of ammunition we have in a clip. You'll have peak performance at level 3, increasing our raw attack whenever we have full health, and this will increase the damage of our sticky ammunition explosions. You have artillery at level 3, increasing the damage of our sticky ammunition. You have fortify at level 1, which is a useful skill. Whenever we faint and come back, we'll come back with increased raw attack and defense. You also have stamina surge at level 1, which is a byproduct of the armor we're wearing, but allows us to restore our stamina at a quicker pace. And then finally, when you're wearing your mantles, you'll have heavy artillery at level 2. This will increase the damage when we use cannons and ballistas and such. Finally, for the set bonuses, you have two of them. First of all, you'll have True Spare Shot, which greatly increases the chance of not consuming a bullet when we actually fire a weapon, reducing the amount of times we have to reload, and ultimately conserve our ammo supplies as well. You'll also have the Rathian Essence Poison Duration up, which increases how long the poison element remains on a monster. So the way this build works is, first of all, we aim to poison a monster. The Yangaruga Light Bowgun that we are using has access to multiple poison ammunitions, and they all have large clip sizes, manageable recoil and reload speeds as well. This, coupled with the poison duration up as well as the poison attack skill, means that when we poison a monster, it remains poisoned for a long duration and takes significant damage from the ailment as well. This allows us to deal damage to a monster even if we're not actively attacking it. Afterwards, we switch over to the sticky free ammunition type and plaster the monster with the sticky ammunition, mainly going for the head to knock out a monster and deal fixed damage that way. Obviously, we'll be using evade reload as well to minimize downtime when it comes to reloading, and this also combined with the evade window adds to our survivability. But there we have it, that is the budget build challenge build I'll be using with the Light Bowgun. But every build out there has various pros and cons. When it comes to this build, its biggest pro is its fixed damage. Able to deal out decent damage via the sticky ammunition combined with the poison ammunition, it means that we can take on pretty much any monster in the game, regardless of their elemental and element weaknesses as well. On top of that, its next pro is its survivability when it comes to evading. Its strong evade, combined with the evade reload, means that we can dodge through enemy attacks quite easily, keeping ourselves alive. Just be careful though, because if you do get hit, you will unfortunately take a lot of damage. And then finally for the pros is this build is incredibly easy to build. There are very few rare pieces needed for this build, so anyone should be able to craft it. But unfortunately there are cons. The biggest con for this build is unfortunately it has low defense, so if you do get hit, you're going to get hit hard. This can potentially one-shot you in some circumstances, but they are very rare. So make sure you master your dodges, time your evade reloads well, so you can capitalize on the evade window skill. And then, unfortunately, the last con is that sometimes you can have ammo supply issues, which means that you'll either have to go back to camp to resupply or switch over to less effective ammunition types. But like I said, if you're looking for a strong budget build for the Light Bowgun that isn't too difficult to craft and still very functional, I'd recommend this one. So let's move on to the next part of the video and talk about how this Iceborne budget build performed in the actual challenge hunts. So first of all is Tempered Ruina no Gigante via the Ode to Destruction event quest. To be honest, this quest was quite simple for this build. As long as I was able to keep my distance from Ruina no Gigante, it performed adequately well. Prioritizing the sticky ammunition on its head allowed me to knock out the monster quite effectively multiple times, and then afterwards when it was on the floor I would use the sticky ammunition on the various spikes that were actually quite softened up so I could break them, knocking it over even more. This, all the while coupled with poison, allowed me to safely take down Monster Hunter World's flagship monster with little difficulty, which moved us on to the next challenge hunt, which was against Furious Rajang. Furious Rajang is a monster that I like to use fast weaponry against it. The Light Bowgun fits this role quite nicely, as it is a very manoeuvrable weapon, especially when coupled with the evade reload. This means that I was able to keep up with the monster, evading its attacks and counter them with sticky ammunition. As a result, as long as I kept on the move and didn't mess up my evade reloads and thus have to perform the stationary reload instead, it felt like I was on an even playing field with the angry monkey. Again, poisoning it when I can and then focusing on sticky ammunition against its head allowed me to knock it out a few times, and so long as I wasn't getting greedy and taking unnecessary risks, which I mean normally I wait for the monster's attack and then follow it up with an attack of my own and then wait for its next attack, rinse and repeat, I was able to take on Furious Rajang with little stress. Which brings us on to the third and final hunt, which was against Fatalis, the Black Dragon. Now, this build, I will say, struggled a little bit against Fatalis. I did fail the hunt the first time round, and this is mainly down to the build's lack of defense, fire resistance, and divine protection. So, a word of warning, this build can struggle against the Black Dragon a little bit, but nonetheless, if you're using all the tools available to you, poisoning Fatalis when you can, and then immediately switching over to the sticky ammunition, making use of the heavy artillery found on our mantles and making use of those cannons and ballistas to knock over the monster and then have a period of attacking the head, you'll find you'll start to gain the upper hand. I will say though, a word of warning, whilst yes, the Light Bowgun can hit the head quite effectively on Fatalis, especially when using sticky ammunition, it means that you shouldn't delay in attacking the monster. There are opportunities where you'll want to wait until the head is in position where you can attack it, but because this build is built the way it is, it doesn't have the highest DPS out there, which means that if you're not attacking constantly, you're going to approach that 30-minute time limit, which means that you might fail the quest. So you have to keep up with the monster, attacking it as much as possible. Of course, going for the head when you can, but if you can't, just hit it anywhere you can to deal the damage so you're able to do the hunt in the time limit. Do this, and even this build will be able to bring down the Black Dragon Fatalis. So there we have it, that was the budget build challenge using the Light Bowgun. Hopefully it showed you that limited builds are still good in the game. Of course, endgame builds are going to be far more effective and quicker at taking down monsters, but even these limited budget builds shows that monsters can be taken out. Also, I'm sure that you could potentially adapt these budget builds as you go through the game to make them stronger and more suited to your own personal playstyle. So of course, change it as you see fit. And until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you the budget build challenge for the Light Bowgun in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.